Hi there and welcome to the Pondering Dan podcast, where we talk all things teaching, education, pedagogy and technology. I'm your host Danny Summerall, and if you're new to the show, make sure you leave a review and share with your peers. Connect with me on Twitter, Instagram and YouTube at Pondering Dan, as well as at ponderingdan.com. All right, hi everyone, this is Danny and welcome to the Pondering Dan podcast. We've got a bit of a special episode today. I'm actually joined by two educators, both currently based in the States, but teaching in different contexts. So we've got Troy Harkin, who is a teacher at the Shanghai American School in China, but is currently relocated to Missouri just during this shutdown. And we've also got Rosita Darden from Grandview Prepatory School in Boca Raton in Florida. So welcome both of you to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's exciting to hear about what's happening with you guys over there. So I guess we might just start. I'll let you do an introduction each and just tell our listeners just a bit about your school, if you're shut down, how long you've been shut down for. And we might start with you, Troy.
Sure. So my school, I haven't seen my students since the middle of January. We had Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year, depending upon where you're from. Yeah. And this all started happening around that time. So we pretty much left in the middle of the new year to come back to the States. And we've been teaching online now for 7 weeks, but prepping for a little bit longer than that. We started prepping during the break itself.
Okay, so you had a bit of warning.
Kind of. I mean, kind of a bit of warning. I know that some schools right now are closing during spring break, and they'll be starting up sessions after that's over within some schools here in the States. So I think they have a bit of prep time and warning time as well to get ready for it.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. And how about you, Rosita?
So we did have a little bit of a warning last week. I would say like mid last week, we started listening to the news a lot and our administrators had been in contact with powers that be. And by Friday, March 13th, we were told that we would be closed this week. And then the following week is our spring break. So, luckily we have 2 weeks for, planning what is to come. So we thought we'd only be out for 2 weeks, but it looks like we might be out for 8 weeks.
Yeah. How long is your spring break?
Our spring break is just a week. So next week is our actual spring break.
Okay.
So this week has been just a focus on touching base with our students, doing a Google Meets, making sure everybody's feeling okay, encouraging the social distancing and encouraging, the hand washing and also trying to be a little lighthearted about it. So today I was able to meet with my advisees. I have a couple of different roles, but one of them is advisor to the 9th graders. So my colleague and I met up with them and it was kind of nice to at least see their faces and talk to them for a little bit and get them to understand what is to come.
Yeah.
School,
okay.
at least.
Yeah. Well, with our school, so I'm at a really large school in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, Australia, and we are still open. Today, I think our attendance is around 60%. So, we have 3,000 students. So that's a fair few hundred kids that aren't here today. But we're starting to see a lot of teachers that aren't here as well. So, but we're doing a tremendous amount of work, which I'm sure you've all been through as well, in preparing for eventual closure. So we've actually got a week and a half until our term 1 holidays, and we would ordinarily have 2 weeks off. So we don't know what's happening now, whether we will close before the holidays or whether they'll push us right through. But then we don't know what happens on the other side of those as well. So it's interesting to hear these different sides of where we're all up to. And I guess you've both sort of talked a little bit about, how much warning you were given before your shutdown. I'm really curious to know, what was the general feeling from, the staff and the students and the families from your school communities? Rosita, did you want to start there?
Sure. So for the most part, we've been really watching the news and listening to administrators, tell us what might happen. And so for a lot of us, it wasn't a shock. For just a couple, I would say, maybe relieved, like, oh, we kind of get an earlier spring break. And that's understandable too. And then for others, a little sadness because, there's uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. This is not something that's just happening in our area. Obviously, this is a global problem. And as far as students, there was a little bit of anxiety from a couple of students, the unknown again, that worry. So we just tried our best to keep them at ease and try to have a little fun, before the news did go out that we would be closed for school.
Yeah. So when you talk about the students that have had anxiety, obviously we've got the same here, and Troy, you would have had the same over there. And we've sort of been told as well, try to focus on the fun aspect. And, so, we're still covering curriculum, but it may not be as deep as what it normally would be. Is that what you've found as well, Rosita? Like there's a lot of, sometimes we'll throw it out the window. Let's just do something fun this session. Is that sort of what happened?
So, yes. And unfortunately not planned. Obviously, I didn't know there was going to be a coronavirus outbreak, but we, with my 6th and 7th graders, I'm also an ELA teacher, and we were covering the Holocaust, which is a heavy, heavy topic.
Yeah.
And so as we started to get the news, because my students are very well informed and they do watch the news, and we talk a lot about current events, they were saying how they were trying to compare it to the Holocaust. And I was, as an educator, I'm like, you cannot compare this to the Holocaust, because what happened during the Holocaust were horrible atrocities between, humans that were just plain out evil doing this to other people, versus this is a virus. But I could see where they were trying to pull a little bit of comparison, the unknown, I guess, right? Not knowing, the fear. So that was done. Luckily, we were towards the end of the unit of the study, and I just started to do some creative writing with them. We just sort of sat down and talked.
That's nice.
We were just being creative. Yes.
Yeah, it's sort of almost become a relationship building exercise, hasn't it?
Yes.
You can relax a little bit, and you want to build their spirits up. Yeah. How about your teams, Troy?
Oh man. Yeah, I think when it first started for us, it feels so long ago now, actually.
Yeah.
We had it to where we just wanted to touch base with students, see how they were feeling, see where they were at in the world, because people were traveling during the break that we had, kind of all over the place. So that added another level of complexity for us in terms of what our plan was going to be and how we were going to interact with students. But yeah, initially we were definitely trying to just reach out to them, establish those relationships, let them know we're here, let them know we're here to help, and start putting some activities into place.
Yeah.
And then when we realized that it was going to be longer term, we adapted our plan, and we continued to do so during this whole time to make it more in line with actually meeting standards and developing assessment and such, and having to do that because we realized that it wasn't going to be just for a week or two, that this was going to be going on for a bit longer.
Yeah.
So we had to keep in mind and make sure we had time to cover what we needed to cover, that what we thought that students needed to do in order to be able to pass whatever grade they're in right now, or even graduate.
Yeah. It's and can I just clarify, so was this the start of your school year over in China, or were you following the same as the States and halfway through?
Yeah, we were following the same as the States. We were halfway through.
Okay. So you were lucky you knew the students then.
Yeah, we already had rapport with the students at that time.
Yeah, good.
And in Australia, it's quite different, where you guys started in just a few weeks ago. What, 10 weeks ago almost now?
We're in week 8 now. Yeah,
week
of our
now.
school year. Yeah, so what a great time to have this happen, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really, it's fascinating. And you are so lucky that it wasn't this very start of your year. Imagine coming back from your, your summer break and not even finishing your summer break, and actually you're having to prepare all of this while you're on holidays. And then for you as well, Troy, having to go, well, hang on, I've got a young family. I probably should go back home and ride the wave and get out of it. So thankfully for being connected, you've been able to keep working, I suppose. That's a good thing.
Yeah. It's been weird hours of the day for sure, but yeah, we've been doing it.
Yeah. What about like the families? Were they okay?
That's a good question. Overall, I think they were okay. I mean, all the schools in China shut, and so they couldn't really have their children attend school really anywhere. And there were some families that were abroad that have tried to maybe enroll their kids in schools or other programs, but as you've seen what's been happening, those have been shutting as well. So in terms of being okay, it's a very big question. I think initially okay, but the longer that this goes on, it definitely adds a lot of stress to home life, to school, to relationships, and all of that. But we do keep in touch with families on pretty much a weekly basis. Lots of open channels of communication with them, and they're supportive of all the work that we're doing. But we also recognize that it is pretty stressful for a lot of people.
Yeah. How? I actually had this question for a bit later on, but I'll ask it now since it's sort of coming up. But how are you both keeping in touch with your families and your students?
Troy, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Sure. So we use Microsoft Office 365 at our school. Okay. And so with that, we've been able to build up Microsoft Teams and use that as one of our platforms for the synchronous learning for middle school and high school. In elementary school, they use Seesaw, and I think they use Zoom for some contact with the students, but it's not as much as for middle school and high school students in terms of the synchronicity. Yeah. We also have our learning management system that we use, Schoology, which for tracking, work completion, and also maintain communication with parents and things like that, and students. Okay. So we've been able to maintain contact with the community. So
excellent. Yeah. And is yours more synchronous learning or asynchronous? Like, are you doing those videos from home and they've got to complete things at their own pace, or you're doing a lot of live stuff?
It's a bit of a mix. So we have like tasks that are set every week for students to complete. I'm a design teacher, and so we've had to shift gears completely to like digital design projects for students to do. And then when I'm not doing that, I'm also one of the instructional tech coaches. So I've been doing a lot of training and PD and seminars for staff and families and things like that to help get them using the tools. Yeah. And in terms of the synchronous online learning, we twice a week I meet with students, and usually about 20 or so have been showing up as of late to come out for those. And it's for an hour, and we do that twice a week. And we do one in the morning my time, one in the evening my time, and that's just to try to match with wherever the students are in the world. Because one thing we found out really quickly was that we're covering about 20 different time zones right now in terms of families and teachers and students.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they're all, so a lot of them have done what you've done and gone back home.
Yeah, gone back home.
Because obviously you're an international school. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so they've gone back home, or they've gone someplace where there's family, someplace where they feel comfortable and safe, and have set up home for there for now.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's incredible. What about you, Rosita? What are you using to keep in touch with people?
So we also have a balance between synchronous and asynchronous learning right now. And of course, it's so new. Literally today is our day 2. So this week has been focusing on teacher meetup yesterday using Google. We're a Google school, so we use Google Meets, and just touching base with administrators so we know, what's to come. And then today I spent a lot of time working with some of the administrators and my colleagues on planning some PDs that we could do online with some of our teachers that needed a little bit of help with learning how to use specific tools. Like for lower school, we use Seesaw. We use actually Seesaw from early childhood all the way through 8th. Good. But so that's wonderful. And then we use obviously Google Classroom for our I would say 4th through 12th graders. And I'm also the innovation coordinator for my school. So part of my role is also just to make sure that I can help the teachers, communicate with the parents as to what they need to do on their end. for when we do, we do plan on staying closed for quite some time. So after spring break, we'll start formal, if you want to call it formal, but lessons and activities. And in the meantime, we've given parents some resources for their children at home, optional resources at the moment that they could do, because we understand that parents are stressed out. Some have lost jobs, some still have to work, some may or may not have nannies, or grandparents that maybe are elderly and cannot take care of their kids. So we're being very mindful about that and just telling them not to stress. If you can't log on, don't worry. We'll get you there. I mean, I've even made myself available to call them personally and walk them through.
Oh, that's good. So it seems like we've all got very similar roles within our schools, because a lot of what I've been doing as well is, preparing teachers to use all these online tools. And like you, Rosita, we're a Google school, so we're using Meets for all our meetings, and we're trying to work out how that looks if we have to have one-on-one conferences with students. So, we're talking about now, so, well, how do we do that? Do we send them links? And, we've been told we need to record our conversations with our students if we are using those platforms too, for our own safety. And, and then there's lots of technical challenges that come with that. But like both of you, we're using Seesaw, but we're only using that for our junior school, which goes from our foundation to year 4. And I think most of our teachers are pretty prepared for that, and which is really good. And there hasn't been a lot of, there's obviously anxiety about the change, but I think people have been upskilled enough over time that they feel like they can handle it, which is really good. And then with our middle school students, which is our 5 to 8s, they're using Google Classroom, and I think they're using that a bit in their senior levels, which is our 9 to 12s, but they're also using Edrolo as well. So, but as far as us keeping in touch with our parents, we plan on just doing that through our normal learning management platform, which is Compass, which is okay. I guess we'll test all that out, but I think a lot of teachers will just go on to using those Meets and, organising meetings with parents that way. So, and with our community, obviously there's anxiety because the kids are just dropping off every day. We have less and less. And I think it doesn't help that, there's a lot of panic buying happening in our supermarkets, and obviously with different media sensationalizing the stories, and I get that we have to be careful, but then, you wonder how much is valid panic. I don't know. So I guess even for myself, there's that bit of anxiety there, am I prepared enough? And you're probably both thinking the same, I would assume.
Yes. I mean, we all live in 3 different places, so I'm sure that we could testify to what we've seen, in the supermarkets or the pharmacies or the drive-throughs, but it felt very eerie, at least for me. Saturday night, I had gone to Orlando the end of last week. We had planned a field trip. Of course, it got canceled at the last minute. I was already there because I was going to visit my parents, and I wanted to make sure they were set up because I have a 93-year-old grandmother, and my parents are older. And, people in Orlando were wearing gloves to go shopping, and it was a little scary. And then I got back home Sunday night, and I said, you know what, let me go to the grocery store. I don't think I have anything. And that's when I think it really hit me of how real this is, and that nobody's immune to this, because I kid you not when I tell you that I bought the last 2 bananas and a couple of packets of strawberries, and there was barely any milk. So it's scary.
It is scary. Yeah. I was at the supermarket on Saturday, and I have enough at home, but I was just doing my regular top up as you do every week, and I was blown away by how empty the shelves are. Even the health food section was nearly empty, which that never happens. That's always full. And I remember going down to pick something up, and I looked at my hand and I was actually shaking, and I'm like, oh wow, I think that was the moment it actually hit me how real all of this is. And I think it's important that we talk about those feelings with our students as well, because they're going through exactly the same thing.
Yes,
they are.
Yeah. I guess thinking of my next question for both of you, and it might throw you on the spot right now, but what advice would you have for teachers that are either closed or about to close, or in schools, sorry, that are about to close, to sort of help ease their mind a little bit?
I've been hearing that question a lot, even
Yep.
from some of my administrators and some of my friends that teach in other places around the world. And honestly, like, I know there's a book, Teach Like Your Hair's on Fire. I cannot remember. It was like, one of the books that I got when I first started teaching many, many years ago. And that's what this feels like. It's like you have to throw out the lesson plans and, the ideas you had. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth right now because it's like survival mode. Where we want to make sure, I think teachers should make sure that you're feeling okay, that you're taking care of yourself so that you could be better for your students, and that you're listening to them, because everybody has anxiety right now. And it's important that we keep it real. We don't need to scare our students, but we definitely need to keep it real, and we need to keep it simple.
Absolutely.
Very simple.
Yeah. What about you, Troy?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know for me, because we've been doing this for a bit longer than a lot of other schools out there at the moment, that my ideas might be somewhat different. And I think it's just the biggest thing for us is that, administration leaders of schools need to have a plan in place as much as possible that can be communicated to their community. They can be communicated to teachers, to students, to families in terms of expectations and, a set of frequently asked questions that they can go to and check on that can be updated on a regular basis, and not be afraid to evolve that plan as you go. Because right now, some schools are saying, sure, we'll be back April 3rd or something like that. And, there's a chance that they might not. The state of Kansas just closed their schools for the remainder of the year. And so you're looking at something where they've already decided, yep, this is what we're going to do. And other states might follow suit. So I think having that plan in place for your community is very, very crucial. And the ability to adapt that plan as new information comes in. There's tons of resources that are being made out there. And I'm not sure if you guys are a part of the group yet or not, but on Facebook, less than 3 weeks ago, this group got created called Educator Temporary School Closure for Online Learning.
Okay.
And
you might have sent that to me. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
So this group has gotten really big, really fast. It's almost 100,000 teachers right now are in the group.
Wow.
And they started creating different subgroups and things like that within it to see if teachers need more specialized help based on their role in the school, what types of students they're working with, and all of that. And it's got a ton of stuff in there. And it's organized quite well. Any blog that you're thinking of, any list or whatever that you've seen, it's going to be in the group. And so if you ever feel like you need something to look at or a guide of some sort, start there and see what they say.
Yeah. What's that group called again, Troy?
Yeah, it's pretty long. It's called the Educator Temporary School Closure for Online Learning.
School closure I'm typing this furiously, and I will put that in the description to this episode as well, so people can find it. But I'll be joining that too.
There's schools, there's teachers from all over the world that are in the group, and they're asking lots of great questions and getting lots of feedback on things pretty much instantly because people are on it all the time right now.
Yeah.
That's great.
That is great.
So if you're not in that, and if you joined, you're like, hey, teachers, check this out. If you need other stuff, you can go here as a starting point. Definitely do that.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that's really amazed me. Actually, I shouldn't be surprised about it because, we're all pretty active on social media. So we see a lot of the camaraderie between teachers, but this has just been magnified to a whole new level. And there is things coming left, right, and center all the time, which is unbelievable. Like, it makes me feel so proud to be a teacher right now because of how well everyone's just working together, like hundreds of thousands of us.
I agree.
Totally.
It's so uplifting. And I think for me, that's one positive that I'm trying to focus on is that, yes, we're going to fail, but we're going to learn from that and get better. And I'm sort of thinking of the possibilities long term. I think this is going to change education big time. Maybe not straight away, but down the track, I think people will see what is actually possible with our learning to do differently, which is kind of exciting to think of, but also terrifying at the same time, I think. But yeah,
I think it's forcing a lot of teachers that maybe were set, in a certain way. And I, for the most part, and I'm not speaking for my school, but I know that there's a lot of teachers out there that are very traditional and still like to do the worksheets and the workbooks and whatnot. And I think it's forced those teachers to be creative and really just think of other tools and other ways of engaging their students. So like you said, you're right, we're going to come out of this so much better and so much stronger. And it's
absolutely.
really nice, like you said, to see how everyone's just sharing. I mean, I think educators naturally always share, but you're right, the amount of information that I'm getting every single day, every minute, I would say, is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if our listeners want to get in touch with either of you, or you're both on Twitter, so that's probably the easiest way.
For sure.
What are you on Twitter, Troy?
I am at Harkin World, Harkin World.
Excellent. And Rosita?
At Teacher Darden.
Excellent. And I'm at Pondering Dan, but if you listen to this, you would already know that. But if you've got any questions for myself, Troy, or Rosita, please reach out. We're all here to help each other. We've got a lot to get through, however long it takes as well. So we could probably talk about this for hours. But we don't want to keep our listeners on our podcast for hours as well. So I really appreciate you both joining in really last minute, actually. We only planned this an hour ago. So I'm so thankful that I've had the chance to talk to both of you about your experiences, and, might be good to catch up again in a month or two and see where we're at there.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening today. Again, if you like what you've heard today, please like and share the podcast. If you want to get in touch with me, again, I'm at Pondering Dan on Twitter, or drop me a line at dan@ponderingdan.com. Any parting words, Rosita or Troy?
No, thank you for having us, and just stay healthy. That goes for everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you guys are going to be all right. Just
yes.
It's going to take some time, but you're going to be all right, and you're going to be there for your kids and families. You're going to be all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I feel like I want to break out in song, a High School Musical. We're all in this together. I won't do it. I won't subject you to that. But all right. Thanks, everyone. And that's all for this episode. Until next time, I'm Danny. Bye.